Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started just so we can keep our webinar to 1 hour or so. Thank you all for joining us. I am just going to share our presentation here. All right. Thank you. All right. So obviously it's December 17th, and tonight we're talking about the strategic plan for the Broadway Middle School property. As you probably know, this is a series of webinars that we have put together, and you're participating or viewing the third of the series. We had concurrent webinars on December 3rd and December 10th with different topics, and then tonight we're talking about the strategic plan for the property and the process for that. Excuse me 1 second. There we go. All of the webinars are viewable afterwards on the SEPRD YouTube page, and I'm expecting our wonderful IT manager, who you'll hear more about later, will have this uploaded probably tomorrow, and you can archive it or retrieve it for archive there. Also, I want to let you know that we are taking questions and feedback all of the time, but specifically if you have questions that you'd like to be answered about the webinar or topics pertaining to the webinar, please submit those to the email address below, which is info@sunsetempire.com. The format for tonight, it's going to be a tiny bit different, but similar to the other webinars that we've done. We'll provide an overview of the phases of the project as the district and board have kind of drawn them out to help us sort of process this big project that we have. Second, we'll hear from consultants, one of our elected officials on the board, and some key members of our staff in regards to the current phase that we're in and the next phase that we'll be embarking in soon. Again, as a reminder, please submit your questions to info@sunsetempire.com. And then at the end, we'll have some just concluding thoughts and reminders about upcoming opportunities for the public. So first, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit of information about the phases of this project. And this is something that I shared in a presentation to the City of Seaside City Council on Monday, but I think it's really helpful for members of our public to kind of understand how the board and staff are working together to sort of parcel out this undertaking. And it is quite an undertaking, I think, for us or for anyone else. So the first phase, we labeled the preliminary assessment phase, and that's a really important phase. During that phase, staff have worked really hard over the past few years to prepare documents and information that they've shared with elected officials from the board and with other folks in the community. This has been a process that's gone back a few years, including in 2014, we did a community charrette where we had community members participate in a visioning process for the district and what the district needs. A lot of those needs are reflected in some of the opportunities at the middle school. Again, we had the work done in 2017. We hired a recreational planner from Colorado called Ballard and King Associates, and we worked together with that individual to do a lengthy review of what our community would like and how we could better serve them. And that was a really important process in coming to the decision that we did to run a bond in 2018. And obviously that bond was unsuccessful, but what we really feel like is that the information that we gathered in that time has been really enlightening, and it's been informative for the position that we're currently at. Also in this phase, the board and staff reviewed the financial position of the district to see if this was an undertaking that would be something that we would have the ability to accomplish, something that was feasible and in the best interest of the district. Again, they referred to that feasibility study of 2017. They received a lot of staff input. So there's a lot of information that went into this phase one. The second phase was what we called the due diligence phase, and that's actually the phase that we're in currently. The district has invested significant resources to conduct some very particular inspections of the property. We did an overall property inspection, but we wanted to dig a little bit deeper into some concerns that we and other members of the community had. So we've invested some resources for that. And by my count, at this point, we've invested in between $30,000 and $35,000 just for those reports and for some consulting on those reports. And I know that seems like a lot, and it definitely is even to a district, but we felt like this was a worthwhile investment so that we could gain better information and make sure that we were adequately informed before we proceeded with the purchase. I think it's really important for us to understand that there is some repairs or some remediation that's going to be necessary in the building, and those reports have helped us with that information by providing some approximate costs and also a priority schedule for what are the higher priority items that should be addressed before others. We gathered public input, and I'll talk more about that in just a second. We've continued to work with some experts. You're going to hear from one of them tonight, but that information has been really valuable. The district, while we are excited about this opportunity, we don't have the qualifications necessarily amongst staff to embark on this experience without some expert consultation, and we're happy to have had those services provided. And again, the board and staff have continued researching the financing implications of this phase or during this phase of the project. That includes an internal or a short-term business plan that we're preparing currently and should be ready hopefully in the next few weeks, but also some information that will be shared later down the road as part of an overall and larger strategic plan for the property. So I want to share a little bit about some of the expertise that we've received. We've used the Klosh Group, and we have David from that group tonight. They're owners' representatives that are very helpful in analyzing information about the building and making a plan and working with consultants, contractors to help make sure that the owner's needs are met. We received reports from Morrison Hirschfield, who did our building science and building envelope report, including the roof of the project. We received a report from Katina Consulting, who assessed the structural integrity of the building. We're working with the local contracting unit, Diamond Heating, to assess that part of the building. And then you'll see some other folks that have been really crucial. Our broker is Julia Raditz from Totem Properties. We've worked with David Olbrich from SDAO, and then our counsel from Northwest Government Legal Solutions is Eileen Akins. Additionally, the board has received community input about this project, and I think they've made themselves very available. There's been 6 public board meetings where they've received public comment since the authorization to proceed in the purchase. And that's only in about a little less than 3 months' time. There's been 4 workshops since then. I am not aware of all of the correspondence, but I do know that the board has received a number of correspondence to their district emails and maybe other correspondence and private communication about the project. You know about the webinars because you're here tonight. We also conducted a community survey. We've done a series of presentations, and I think we've received great coverage in local papers about this opportunity. The last phase of the project is phase 3, which is the comprehensive planning phase. And I think that's what we're hoping to talk a little bit more about tonight. In this phase, the district plans to retain or hire consultants, perhaps different consultants, for assistance in the planning and project management aspect of this great undertaking. We'll continue to gather input. It's not quite clear exactly how we will do that, but gathering that public input is a very important component of this process, and it's something that we'll be open to doing as we move forward. We're going to explore partnerships. The property is quite large, and there's a possibility that we could find partners to share some of this property with, or share some of the space with, either temporarily, permanently, for programs or services that they're going to provide to our community. So I think we've had a lot of interest in the property, and there's a lot of great ideas out there, but we need this comprehensive planning phase to really assess and decide what's best for the district. Also, we're going to create a detailed program and facility plan. So I think there's a lot of programming opportunities within the middle school because it's such a large facility and it expands what the district is currently able to provide. But we really are working hard on preparing a plan that will show and demonstrate how to get the best possible usage out of that space. So I've taken enough time, but I want to introduce our panel. And I'll just state them by name, and then if they can unmute themselves and just share a little bit for a brief minute or so about who they are, and then we'll get right into questions. So first, I want to introduce Celeste Bodner from the SEPRD Board. Go ahead, Celeste.
Hi, I'm Celeste Bodner. I'm a Seaside resident. I actually grew up here. And I am a member of the Park and Rec Board of Directors.
Thanks, Celeste. Next, from the district staff, we have Levi, our maintenance manager, and Darren, our IT and development manager. Levi, do you want to go first? And then Darren, you can follow up.
Levi Connor, and maintenance manager, and then maintenance industry and Park and Rec for over 20 years.
Thanks, Levi. Darren?
Sorry, my space bar is not working with me. Good evening, everyone. I'm Darren Gooch. I'm the IT and development manager for the Sunset Empire Park and Recreation District. I'm trying to keep it brief, but I kind of wanted to give everybody a little bit of an idea what it is exactly that that I do for the district. I've been with the district for over 17 years now. Just passed my 17-year mark back in September. So one thing that I have is a great deal of history with our Park and Recreation District, and I like to tell everybody I've worked in just about every area of the district, with the exception of lifeguarding. I'm not a great swimmer, so probably shouldn't put me into that role exactly. But I've done just about a little bit of everything else over my years. I started out in youth programs. I started the pottery program at the Bob Chisholm, spent some time at the Bob Chisholm working after hours rentals and things of that sort. In 2007, I moved into more of an administrative role as a program developer, kind of focusing on outdoor recreation programs. Later took on the IT management, marketing management, and currently I oversee mainly the IT department, which is really a department of one. That's myself. All the patron relations specialists or the front desk staff are under my purview. The senior meal site coordinator at the Bob Chisholm Community Center, all of the community art program instructors, and I generally oversee pretty much all the operations at the Bob Chisholm, and then I act as Marcus's backup for the payroll. So if for some reason something happens and he can't do the payroll, I'm available to step in and take care of that. So just a couple of other things really quick. Again, I don't want to eat up everybody's time, but I'm also one of the primary grant writers for the district, and that's something I've done for over 15 years. Written a lot of grants, a lot of them in partnerships with the city of Seaside. So we have a lot of great history with them as well. And then I was also involved in the Bob Chisholm Community Center Refresh Project, and hopefully I'll get a chance to talk about that a little bit more coming up, and kind of how that's relevant to this project. But yeah, so that's who I am. So thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Last, from the Klosh Group, we have David Dwyer. David.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Happy holidays. 1 week from today, if you can believe it, right? Hey, thank you, everybody, Skylar, the board, the staff, for trusting us to be your consultant on this due diligence phase and the phases upcoming. Super excited. I've been in construction for 20 years. plus. I've done over $1 billion worth of construction management in some role, some senior level role of either direct management, guidance, advisement, or in some level of leadership in construction. So it's second nature to me. So a lot of things maybe I say tonight, hopefully I don't take my information for granted. So please ask questions. And I really see a lot of value in what's happening here. So I'm very excited to be part of it. So anyway, that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, David, and thanks everyone else. I'm going to actually pepper some questions. I'll probably state the name of the panelist I'm hoping will respond, but if there's others that have been introduced that want to add to it after they share, that would be wonderful. And again, you can send your questions if you have them for the panelists to info@sunsetempire.com. David, I'm actually going to start with a question for you. Just based on the reports that you've received, and like you said, you've been kind of working in this industry and with other agencies or entities on their projects, can you assess the potential of the facility in comparison with other projects that you've worked on or other opportunities that you've seen?
Yeah, that's a good question, Skylar. I'll tell you that this building has got good bones, as we have seen from the reports. So from that standpoint, it is a solid structure and it's going to provide the value that you need for the investment you're going to put into this over the next years to serve however that master plan, that phase 3 lends itself. So I think that which you have before you is a great opportunity. As some of our consultants have told us, they don't have any concerns about this. It's going to take some work to figure out how we're going to best use it. So I'll leave it at that for now. If there's follow-up questions, Skylar, then please go for it.
Thanks. I'm going to go to Levi. Levi, can you share some of your experiences that you've had in your past or with the middle school currently, as you have spent some time over there, that you believe will help the district to move forward with the building that has some obvious deficiencies just based on age and weathering of our climate?
Yeah, so with my 20 years in the park and rec industry, I think that's very important to highlight because that's maintaining public assets, and it's a different approach. You're dealing with taxpayers' money, and so it's a little bit different than just maintaining a business. So some of those public buildings were community center, recreation center, senior centers, park restrooms, which it's still a great asset, needs a lot of attention sometimes, meeting halls, hard surfaces, swimming pools, as well as registered historic buildings. So I can assure that my experience and the knowledge in the industry will just blend beautifully with this new purchase of the middle school. I spent a lot of time in the middle school in the last few months, kind of feel the pulse of the building, and I feel really good about it. I have 10 years of project management in the public sector as well, so I can help. It'll be a nice working together with the Klosh Group and the other contractors. So I think that's about it.
Thanks, Levi. Celeste, you kind of have a different perspective maybe than staff or maybe even than David, but I know you've heard a lot of feedback about the property and about the potential there, or maybe the pros and cons, if you will, but how do you feel like the board has been able to balance the needs of the community with the program and the space available in the property, and in consideration of like the cost of acquisition and refurbishment?
Thanks, Skylar. I don't think the board, I think the board was pretty clear early on that the district has been in need of more space. That sentiment has been captured over the last 5 or 6 years through community input, staff input, and discussed at the board of director level by directors before I joined. So when the Broadway opportunity was presented, I personally started talking to people in the community. I think many of my fellow board members did so also. And I also had people reach out to me through the public meetings and via email. And so I can tell you that in almost all of my one-on-one conversations in the community, I've heard overwhelming positive support for the project. During one of my conversations with business owner Mark Udy, he indicated, quote, "I think you guys should be thinking bigger," and went on to describe facilities he had seen when he visited areas of the country with his daughter who played competitive basketball nationally. And he pointed to facilities like Lake Point Sports that's about an hour outside of Atlanta, Georgia, which serves as a magnet for sports teams and their families to play and vacation year round. On the other hand, I've also heard multiple times from individuals who formed a campaign, and I've listened to what they have to say and conversed back and forth with many in the group, and they have some fair points. But I also think some of the campaign messages have involved rhetoric based on misinformation. The main piece of misinformation I feel that's been a cornerstone of that campaign is that the only way to fund Broadway was to raise taxes. And so really then it becomes a question of at what cost? If we already know we need the space, at what cost? And that is a fair question. And so in thinking about this, at least how I think about it, in 2018, when the voters declined the $20 million bond that you referenced earlier, that was to expand the existing Park and Rec building. And the cost of that bond was $20 million, and that would have given us about 34,000 square feet. So at a cost of about $580 per square foot to add space to the district. If you look at the Broadway proposition, even if we're generous and account for all of the remediation that the contractors have suggested that we would need in the next 10 years, our overall cost ends up running at about $125 a square foot. So I think that's a fairly good deal when we talk about the cost of this particular project in comparison to the previous bond, for example. And while the Broadway school definitely has issues that we'll need to overcome, much of the building is in good shape. I've seen it, and I know that it's in good enough shape because the Park and Rec programs are currently running there. And so there's much of the building that can be used. Further, it has lots of features that I think are highly attractive to either lease or maybe even parcel off to sell to the right partner, which you mentioned before, Skylar. So, you know, as some know, maybe not everybody, but particularly anyone who holds office knows, there are many ways to fund projects besides creating a new tax. And as I understand, neither the convention center or the new water tower project were voted on because alternate funding mechanisms were used. And so the Broadway project is a good value. I think our board recognizes this, and it's such an economical choice actually that our board feels confident that there are other avenues that we can fund this project. And we feel like we can use a braided strategy, have various revenue streams to help fund this project, and that it won't require a new tax as some have proposed. Our board has been weighing the information, the community input, looking at the financial impact, both as a group during public hearings and through our own individual time and energy. This has been the task at hand for myself and our dedicated volunteer board members for the last 3 months. And so to me, I look at the Broadway Middle School as just a really important opportunity that stands to shape our community for generations to come. And I'm really appreciative of the hard work of the district staff to put together the plans for us, to give us the information we need to really consider this proposition. I'm also really grateful for the community input, both positive and negative, that helps us look at this project from all sides. And I'm looking forward to working alongside our neighbors and as we envision how this landmark property can benefit all of us in the community.
Thank you, Celeste. Darren, a question for you. What do you feel like are the district's qualifications for managing a large community asset like Broadway Middle School?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Skylar. Yeah, you know, I think everything begins with having a really quality management team. we actually have a really exceptional group of managers, and I've worked, again, 17 years. I've been through a lot of different managers, a lot of different coworkers throughout the years, and I would say right now we have one of the strongest teams that I've ever really been a part of. As Levi mentioned earlier, he has experience overseeing the maintenance of multiple facilities, some larger and much older than Broadway Middle School. So I think he brings a great depth of knowledge to the table. And honestly, if I have to say anything really positive about Levi, which I have a lot of things I can, I've seen in Levi in the short time that he's been with us that he's actually put a lot more effort into preventative maintenance than a lot of our folks in the past. So I really have to take my hat off to Levi. I think about our other managers, both Justin and Shelley. Both of them have worked tirelessly to build some really quality programs. You look at the swim lesson program. That's a program that has a waiting list constantly. As a matter of fact, we got an email the other day from another park and recreation district outside our area. That young lady was looking to get more information. She had heard from some other folks. We have a really great program. She wanted to know, what are some pointers that I can get from you guys to help build a better program. I think about Shelley's program, the youth programs. Again, more programs that constantly fill up and have a waiting list every single season. And I can remember a time in the past, probably about a decade ago, that we had to cancel sessions throughout September, October, November, because we had only one or two individuals, signed up for that session, and it financially didn't make sense to operate with only two participants. So, really my hat's off to the both of them for really putting the time and energy into creating a quality program. And I think that's a testament to them, but it's also part of our bigger picture. It's part of that growth that we want to continue to see. So, I think about other aspects of this kind of transition. What is it going to require to make that move to Broadway, to facilitate rentals, and I think a lot about those things. And my PRS staff they have actually really worked together to craft the process of renting facilities, utilizing our POS system, good communication to make sure that those rentals go off without a hitch. And so I think that'll be a really natural transition from what we already do at the Bob Chisholm and moving into, and what we do at the pool, to moving into a facility like this, and really making that a seamless transition. So in addition to that, we have an exceptionally supportive and creative board of directors now. Mike Hinton has a lot of deep knowledge of the district and a lot of history as a board member. I think that is absolutely invaluable. Both Catherine and Sue have exceptional insight into our operations. Both of them are regular users of our programs. Sue as kind of a daily swimmer, and Catherine has taken advantage of our youth programs for a number of years now. As a matter of fact, you may not know, Catherine was actually one of my early pottery students when I first started the program. Catherine was with me for about a year, or maybe a little bit more, Catherine. So both really valuable folks. And then, Celeste and Erica really bring a great deal of creativity, professionalism to our board, but all taken together, just a really unique and dynamic group. So yeah, that's fantastic. Interestingly enough, Celeste touched on kind of a great piece. There are so many ways about handling the rehabilitation, the refurbishing of a building that don't require going to a bond. And as I mentioned a little earlier, I was involved in the refresh project with the Bob Chisholm Community Center. And for those of you that don't know, the community center is actually an intergovernmental agreement that we have with the city of Seaside. Seaside owns the building, but a number of years ago, we crafted this IGA to be the managers of the building. So I have right now a 9-member commission. They're an advisory committee that reports back to the city of Seaside. And so several years ago, they decided, hey, we really need to kind of get active and do something about improving this space. It really hadn't been touched since 1995. And it was really a very outdated space. And so the commission got together, made a proposal to the city of Seaside and made some recommendations. And city of Seaside city councilors who I'm greatly indebted to for moving that project forward said, yeah, we kind of share your vision. What can we do to make that happen? And so all along, as we have had worked on that project, we refer to it as a phase 1 project, meaning that there are other projects around the building also that really need to be done. But kind of like Desmond Tutu said, how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. And so looking at the Bob Chisholm, breaking that down into individual phases that are staged out over a number of years, really seemed like the appropriate way to handle it, because sometimes the one and done isn't a model that really fits, because you don't necessarily have the resources available to do it. And in this case, the community has said, well, we kind of aren't in favor of a bond right now, or maybe not even a few years down the road. So a one and done model may not fit, but that phased approach really is the way to go. So it works with the Bob Chisholm. Kind of looking ahead at the Broadway project, I kind of really feel like a phased approach really is a good way to handle it. Now, how do we do that? We can leverage it maybe with grants, granting agencies. Over all of my years grant writing for the district, and we've done some pretty big ones at the local level, at the state level, and we've done some federal grants that granting agencies love phases. There's just something they love about that word. So yeah, you've got this project. Can you break that down into a smaller phase? And can you space those out over time? And we've been really successful with that in those projects that we were able to phase out into multiple smaller segments. So yeah, I think, when I think about it, we do have a really exceptional team. I think we have all of the qualifications to move this project forward, and I'm excited about it. I really am. So, thanks.
Thanks, Darren. I'm gonna go to Levi. Levi, we hinted about this, but you spent a lot of time in the building helping assess some precautions that we're required to take with COVID, and helping the programs that are occurring there. I want you to just share what you feel like the condition of the building is currently, and kind of your experience in being there and seeing a lot of the parts of the building that maybe weren't too familiar to us a year or two ago.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, spending a lot of time in there in different areas. And the area that we haven't really spent a lot of time in the past is that west side. For various reasons. And that's really where I think a lot of concern lies, is on that side. And they're really, if you really look at it, they're rooms, and they may have some things that need to be mitigated, but a lot of them have been mitigated under special rules and laws, as the school district is required to do. So, but really, overall, everything inside the building is ready to go. We can walk in and just start programming. With COVID, that's going to add a lot of protocols that need to be put in place. And that's actually a fairly easy task to do. So a lot of these, the classrooms that the youth programs are using right now they're just perfect. They have everything that they need. We can bring in the existing supplies and tables and stuff. So I think really there's nothing really outside of just getting in and start programming that we really need to be concerned about. So.
Thanks, Levi. David, another question for you. I feel like the Klosh Group has been around the block a little bit and has probably participated in some strategic planning for facilities and helping agencies or communities sort of figure out the best use for those facilities. How long do you think a comprehensive strategic planning process would take? And what are some key components that you feel like will be really valuable for us to include in ours?
Yeah, good question. So I would say that this visioning and master planning, we should be able to start something once we get some people on board, the right people on board, 4 to 6 months to get something like that put together. And I don't think that necessarily stops after 4 to 6 months. You do kind of have this one may be more of a phased process where it evolves and you program based on blocks and needs. But even then, I think to me, once we get the right consultants on board with who those people are that understand the objectives, I think we can get something done in 4 to 6 months.
Thanks, David.
And then your second question is, what are some of the elements? Is that what you said? What are some of the key elements?
Either the components or the kind of the key processes in that experience. Yeah.
So some of the key process, I think the process itself needs a roadmap. So we as a team, who those people are on the team are identified, our roles. I think there's probably a kickoff meeting after the holidays. We put together a roadmap of probably something I'm going to be developing over the holidays and start sketching something out of what it looks like for us. And then we as a team, that team that's charged with developing this phase 3 master plan, another essential element out of that is, what are the conditions of success? At the end of that process, what do we believe would be the document, or what is it we want to produce? Do we want the budget? Do we want a scope? What level of scope? Do we want a schedule? What do we want? So that needs to be considered. The vision, of course, the high level vision, that is a statement that we all look and define. That is the marching orders where we are going. So those are some key elements. Like I did say too, having maybe a couple more key folks at the table that have this in their wheelhouse is something that we need to go find. And we've got a network of people that we're activating to make sure that we have those right folks at the table. So you got the right people, you got a roadmap, you got a vision, you got measures of success or conditions of success, and then we go make it happen.
Thank you. That sounds really optimistic. I think I love it. The 4 to 6 months. I think that's the timeline that feels like it's doable for the district. And I think in all honesty, I mean, things typically move quite a bit slower than that. So I think the public and I know our district would be really happy to have that kind of a plan created along that time frame. Celeste, from your perspective, and I know you and, like I said, the other board members have received a lot of communication about the project and the opportunity. What are some ways that the public could get involved in that that third phase in sharing their input or their thoughts or their vision for the property?
Well, I think this is where the board is probably going to want to work a lot with our contractors, with David and other experts at doing this kind of master planning to help guide us and figure out sort of key points for public participation. I mean, I see opportunity for public participation in all the phases that David just talked about, ranging from developing the vision to getting really specific about programming. I mean, all of those pieces, I think, are places for public input. I think the board, one of the commitments that we made was to improve our communication with the public. And I think we have upped the communication compared to previous board activity. I think we've upped the communication with the public during this period. And I think all of our board members are dedicated to continuing that process. So I think we'll also want to work with the Klosh Group, with staff, to figure out other forums for community input. So that could be another extensive community survey. It may be roundtable discussions or community forums. We may establish advisory groups for the various pieces. You know, the board laid out 3 strategic goals: to increase our indoor programming for our local citizens, to increase our youth program and childcare programs, and then also to take a look at this sports tourism strategy that not only will benefit our local kids, but will also bring a boost to our local economy. And perhaps we'll have a citizen advisory board for each of those areas to explore the possibilities. So I think there's lots of different pieces, but I think what I can commit to from the board's position is that we would look to integrate public input in all the phases of the master planning process.
Thank you. A question we got from someone that's tuning in, and I think I'm going to throw it to Darren initially, but Darren, can you share an answer to this question? Might be brief, but I think you can pontificate as you're quite capable of doing. Will the facility be open year round, and how will the various programming serve the public in a way that the district either currently isn't right now, or maybe we'll expand on current programming?
Okay, yeah, a programming question. Yay, all right. So yeah, to the first part of that question, yeah, I think all of us, as far as staff, envision that this is a year-round facility. That some of the programming that makes sense and that needs that space to grow would move over and be able to find a space in Broadway Middle School, so that we can continue growing those programs. Because one of the hardest parts about programming is when you outgrow a space and then you're trying to fit as many people as you can into that space. It's difficult. People get frustrated and they stop turning up, or you have to schedule multiple evenings for a class. I'll use our pottery program as an example, because that's probably one that I am the most familiar with, and where I have actually seen this situation play out. We actually got to a point with one of our evening classes where we had 10 participants in the room, and if you have been in that room with 10 other people, you understand just kind of how hard it is to find a good space to be able to sit around a work table, or having only 3 pottery wheels available at any given time. So an instructor kind of was fielding at one point some disgruntlement with some of the students, that really this space is too small. 10 people is really a pretty crowded space. So our only option was maybe to open up another evening program or another class. And as we attempted to do that, well, then now you've got maybe 8 people in this class, but you've only got 2 in this class. So you kind of start asking the question: is budgetarily, do I have sorry, Christmas is just bursting out at my house right now. So do I have enough people in that class to support what I'm paying an instructor and for materials and things to be in that class with only 2 people here? So, just to kind of talk a little bit about how we structure some of our recreation programs, we've talked about how some programs don't make back the money, the full amount that in revenue that you put out for the staff time and the cost and that sort of thing. However, all of my community art programs are typically a one-to-one program. That means that when I structure the program, I budget out for the materials, for the instructor's time, for all of the other elements that are going to be expensed out of that. And then I set I set minimums for the class. So that means that and I usually try to work off of a 3-person minimum. That means I have to have 3 participants in that program for that program to break even. So anything above that is actually going to be a little bit of revenue for us. So yeah, so does that class going to meet the 3-person minimum? So that's what we ran into in that situation. You know, we had to try and find another creative way to accommodate these folks who were feeling like the space was a little bit cramped. So here we are, we're going to move over some of the programs that fit into that space. And then we have a lot of opportunity for new program development. So as a matter of fact, I have a meeting just set up. I was approached by a lady just this last week. She'd been talking to one of the downtown business owners. She said, I really want to start a painting program. I want to teach painting classes, and that's something we've done in the past. While we had an instructor to be able to do that, that class went on for about a year, and then that instructor moved on somewhere else. But this lady went to somebody downtown. They said, no, contact Park and Rec. So she called me. We set up a time to talk in January about the potential for setting up a painting class. Well, one of the struggles I run into at the Bob Chisholm is that I have a great art room, but it's a pretty dusty space. If you've ever been back there for pottery, you understand that pottery is not the cleanest of art mediums. And so trying to find a space to work in a painting class in there, you know, maybe we can throw some tablecloths down, maybe things like that to try to keep the dust to a minimum. But you know, having access to a building that has you know, multi-use spaces or a number of different spaces allows for a lot more programming opportunities. And I like to think of it this way, that there are programs and opportunities out there that we have never dreamed of yet. I mean, you know, if you know, 30 years ago, you know, we've never heard of Zumba, you know, things like that. But these opportunities come along all the time. And I think we have a great opportunity here to set a wonderful foundation and growth opportunity for some of those things that we haven't even envisioned yet. So really, to me, this is a foundational piece with a lot of programming opportunities. I think about, you know, we've talked a little bit about, I think in some of our other webinars and some of our other communication, I think the board has mentioned it a couple of times too, talking about these maker spaces, these kinds of opportunities for folks to come in and work with other mediums kind of outside of the art arena. These things tend more towards science and those kinds of things as well. I got into kind of working with something called Arduino, more on a kind of a hobby level a number of years ago. If you've never heard of Arduino, they're these little microchips about yay big, and you kind of learn how to program these things. I have 17 chickens at home, and sometimes we forget to close the door at night. And so what I did just on a hobby sort of level at home, that's really how I got introduced to this, was I created a board and programmed it. And so it closes the chicken's door at night automatically when the sun goes down. It's really great. It's super fun to watch them all racing toward the door at night, trying to get in before it closes. But I was able to take some of this kind of hobby level stuff and apply it over to my job. And so I've created some temperature sensors and things like that report back to our website. And so it's kind of a cool thing to have been introduced to that. I got introduced to electronics when I was a kid in school. And so I think about all these kids that could really benefit from that kind of engagement. And so when the idea of maker spaces came up, I went, hey, you know, wouldn't it be great if we had a bin full of these little microchips and a computer workstation where kids could kind of learn how to program these things. So these are the kinds of thoughts that keep me up at night, and especially when I'm thinking about Broadway Middle School and the possibilities and the potential that exists there. So a lot of programming opportunities exist, and for the things we already have, and the things that we can envision, and then beyond that, the things that our community can envision and that our community members ask for. So,
Thank you, Darren.
yeah.
Levi, or actually, I guess to all of our panelists, we're running a little short, so probably just a couple more questions and then we'll conclude. Levi, this one I think is best for you, and I'm going to combine a couple of questions that I've heard in our inbox, but by my count, or by our count, I think there's about a dozen or so classrooms, plus one of the 2 gymnasiums, plus the cafeteria and library that were constructed in that 1994 addition to the middle school. And those are coincidentally the majority of the spaces that the Park and Rec District is using for programming currently. You've spent time in those facilities. So what is the condition of those facilities, most of which are located along, the east side of the facility near the district's other facilities that they use? What are the conditions of those facilities, and do you have any concerns about those spaces for additional programming right now?
Yeah, so the 1994 area, which we're currently utilizing, it's perfect. There's some paint that needs to be done, maybe minor wall repairs, but overall that whole east side is, I would say, in immaculate condition from a maintenance standpoint. The HVAC system that's up there is antiquated, but it's still working and functioning. It needs probably a little bit more preventative maintenance, and we could probably get several years out of it. But it heats up nicely. Cooling down is not, I haven't seen it being an issue. As far as the spaces, there really isn't a whole lot of to do outside minor repairs and maybe adding a couple new lamps in the lighting fixtures. So, there's a couple classrooms on that side that are large enough for fitness classes that you could probably hold at least 20 participants plus the instructor. It'll be great for yoga and some other programming. That's really not my forte, but walking through that's something that I can see happening in some of these rooms. So, but plenty of restrooms. I mean, it's great. I think just everything kind of flows nicely on that side.
Awesome. Thank you, Levi. As time is kind of winding down, I just want to open up the floor to the panelists. We'll work in maybe reverse order if they have anything else to share, and if you don't, that's okay. We appreciate your time and your insight. But we'll go to David. David, do you have anything that you want to share that we didn't cover?
Sorry, I couldn't find my mouse. I would just say that although the reports that people have seen and read on the building envelope shows some work, as Levi has said, it's a solid building. It needs some things, the roof has got to be fixed, the envelope's got to be taken care of, and some things have got to get done. But I also want to make sure that, those who are hearing this part of this webinar, that this building is in a state that is ready for the opportunity before it. And, and it doesn't bring me concern as long as I've been doing this, to dig into this thing. And now we have a blank canvas. Well, until the transaction's done, right? A blank canvas to do what we want, or do what, we decide through this phase 3 process. Anyway, I'm excited about it. I'm glad to be part of this process. And that's all I need to say at this point. So thank you, Skylar.
Thanks, David. Levi and Darren, I'm gonna skip you just for the sake of time, and I'll ask for apologies at our next staff meeting, but thank you for being here and providing that insight. And I am expecting that we'll hear lots more from you in the coming months as we go along our way here. Celeste, I want to give you an opportunity to represent your own perspectives, but also years of you as being a member of the board. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I'd just like to share that I think this is a fantastic opportunity for our community. You know, the location couldn't be better in relationship to Sunset Empire Parks and Rec District. It's a landmark property in the heart of our community. Everybody passes it that goes through our little village by the sea. So it's high visibility. And we've already got a demonstrated community need. We have some gaps to fill in our community that the Park and Rec is ready to fill. And so from my perspective, I think this is a good fit. I think it is going to require some work. I think we've got a hardworking board. We've got fantastic consultants, and we've got an excellent staff to do the work. And so I'm really excited about the journey that we're looking to embark on, because I think we're creating something that I'll enjoy, that my kids will enjoy, and that my future generations will enjoy. And I'm really excited about that.
Thank you. I just want to close with, I guess, some concluding thoughts and revisit kind of what we're envisioning for this phase 3 of our project. Again, we're in phase 2 and in our due diligence phase, and we're hopeful that with time, we'll have an accepted offer between the school district and the Sunset Empire Park and Rec District. At that time, we'll retain some consultants. I think we really plan on leaning heavily on the Klosh Group. As you can see, I think David is qualified to help us, but we may look for some other resources as well to help plan out the best usage for the property. And I think that will include gathering public input, exploring possible partnerships, and really creating that detailed program or facility plan that we can best use the property, best use the facility. I really am grateful for the opportunity to provide recreation services in our community, and as I think all of our staff are, and we cherish each opportunity that we have to improve the lives of our residents and guests through programs and services. And I think that this property, if the acquisition is to go through, will help us to serve a greater percentage of our population and keep people healthy and well. So I'm really looking forward to the opportunity. I also want to share that we are open to receiving more feedback at any time. The email address I shared is always valid, info@sunsetempire.com. There's also communication mechanisms on our website for reaching out to the board of directors. And then lastly, if you've been perusing our website, you'll know this, but I'll share it. We have gotten some other questions that we weren't able to get to tonight. And what we've been doing with as many questions as we can is answering some of those and creating a document on our website that's available for the public to look at. And we'll continue doing that with this webinar. So if there's a question that you didn't feel like was answered or hasn't been answered, please send that our way, and we'll do our best to answer it given the information that we have right now and that we're able to share. And we hope that you recognize that there are some questions that we just don't have the answers to right now, or we're not able to share because of the ongoing transaction or because of other factors at play, but we will do our best to share as much as we can. As David said, we wish you all happy holidays and look forward to seeing you again soon. For your information, the Board of Directors is planning on meeting on Monday, December 28th at 5:15 p.m. in a public meeting. And then they'll have their regular board meeting in January on the third Tuesday of the month, which I believe is the 19th at 5:15 p.m. Happy holidays, everyone. And thank you for tuning in to our webinar. Have a great night.